Hello and welcome. This is Tanya Brown, your spiritual business coach. And today I want to talk to you about Boundaries 101, just how to get started. Boundaries are about making sure that you're protecting yourself from toxicity, from people who are not um, meant to do you any good, for lack of a better word. Here's the thing: so many of us have a tendency to be a magnet for those type of people, people who will prey upon your insecurities and things of that nature. But it's about being clear on the type of people you want to have around you. A friend of mine had said to me years ago when I was working at a very high pressure job in which I was complaining about my hours. I would literally be on email at the crack of dawn until the night that evening, or on the phone with overseas factories, and it was incredibly stressful. I felt like a hamster on a wheel that just couldn't catch up. And even when I was on vacation, I had to check in, so I was never nonstop. And I remembered being calling in sick, and at the end of a day that I called in sick, I was basically doing more work at home than I would normally do in the office. So it was like, how am I supposed to relax and take care of myself? So my self-care went out the window. But I'm giving you these stories for context so you can identify how our boundaries are crossed. And it was, again, a friend saying to me, it's about you showing people how to treat you. And that made no sense to me. And I thought to myself, well, how do you show people how to treat you? And it wasn't until I left that company that I realized it's because you show up on day one by doing that, what you will not accept. And I remembered there was a company that I worked at, and there was this gal that was incredibly toxic. I mean, I've never seen, actually, no, I was about to say I've never seen men afraid of a woman in a work environment, but I have, and this was the second time. And she was just one of those people that stormed in, and she was the black cloud in the room. And I remembered once, and I forgive me if I share this story that I've shared before, but I remember I was at the copy machine, and she just was going on and on about something. And I was just making copies for some presentation, and she just turned to me and said, "Tanya, are you listening to me?" And I said, "Actually, I'm not. I'm ignoring you." But she literally was on a tirade that I'm not going to accept this anymore, and I need this by this time, and blah, blah. And I was thinking, who is she speaking to? And then when she says, "Are you listening to me, Tanya?" I'm like, she thinks she's speaking to me? So my response was, no, I'm not listening, and actually I'm ignoring you. She was so taken back by that response that she literally sputtered like, "Oh, okay," and just moved on. And, the situation was resolved. Like after that, I literally went to HR, and they basically had a come to Jesus moment with her, but the point was, I was not going to engage. And that was me showing up and saying, yeah, no, that's not how I communicate with people. So, but it's about how you enact this into your life. I remembered, in relationships and with people, I know there are boundaries of things that I would do and wouldn't do. I remember there was a girlfriend, a mutual girlfriend, who every time we went out with a mutual friend, she would talk about that person when the person wasn't around. And I would end up defending that person, and she was like, well, that's how you feel. And I said, look, when I choose to be a friend, I take the good with the bad. I'm not your fair weather friend, and I look at people in that regard. Like if I'm your friend and I'm going to be your friend. I'm not going to be your friend and talk about you behind your back. And as a result, our relationship kind of dissipated after that, but it was just, you know, you need to be who you are up front. No facade, no, falsehoods. And when you're doing that, you show people how to treat you. And also, you do this by example. if I'm speaking to you in such a way, you're not going to respond to me in a different manner. I remembered I had this situation happen during quarantine, and I'm on the board of my building, and one of the members is just incredibly toxic and just, he likes altercations. It makes him feel good. And I remember this quarantine, we're in the middle of a virus, a pandemic. I don't want to deal with things that are not important. And he started to like give me a list of things, and it was just like, yeah, no. And finally, I said to him, I will communicate only with you via email. To which he knocked on my door. And I just blocked his phone number. I refused to engage. And as a result, he started responding to me the way that I said I would deal with, via email. And here's the thing about boundaries and life, primarily, it's a choice. It's a choice on how you engage. I could say whatever I want to you, but how you engage with me is your choice. If I am coming at you and I want to have an argument, you can choose not to engage because that's your choice. You don't have to engage with me in this argument that I'm, dying for, So that's the thing. Creating boundaries is your choice of what you will and will not put up with. And here's the thing. Figuring out what your boundaries are is looking at situations in which you don't feel comfortable. When you feel your boundaries are invaded, or you're somebody has stepped over a line, it's when you feel uncomfortable. So when you feel uncomfortable, that's a sign that your boundaries are being crossed. I remembered once I was in a car with my boss, who's a guy, and this was way back in the day, and he was driving and he put his hand on my knee to make a point. And I remember staring at that hand like, why is your hand on my knee? And I didn't say any, and again, I was naive. I did not say anything, but I made a mental note, I'm never going to be alone with this person. And that was the last appointment drive that we went on. But it was about knowing what your boundaries are and what you will and will not feel comfortable with. And knowing that it only needs to make sense to you. And I say that in terms of, if I'm trying to justify my boundaries to you, I don't need to. My boundaries are my boundaries. It's like my feelings. I don't need to justify my feelings or my thoughts. It's mine. You can have a difference of opinion. You may not agree, but it's the way I feel. And if you are infringing upon my boundaries, or you're not making me feel comfortable, that's all I need to know to erect the barrier to say, yeah, this is a line you can't cross. So it's getting clear on how you feel about a situation, your comfort level, and knowing what you will tolerate and what you won't tolerate. And again, this goes back to choices. We have choices to make on a daily basis. And it's about how we respond to the things that are said to us. And to take a step and be very clear on how you're going to proceed. And I mean that in terms of, as adults, we think before we speak sometimes. And being a bit more clear in terms of how you respond to people. Not necessarily lashing out because, that's the automatic response that you feel, but being deliberate in terms of, yeah, that's not the course that I want to go on. Knowing that if I do this, the ramifications of it, if I engage into an argument here, that can spill out in a different direction. Knowing, is it worth it to have this kind of engagement, and what long-term effects for my day is going to be. For example, if I start up the day and I stub my toe, and because I stubbed my toe, I am literally, my day is over. No, it's about stubbing your toe, having a laugh, and saying, you know what, this is the worst thing that's happened to me today. My day is going to be better as a result. But it's about reframing certain situations and creating your boundaries, and not being reactive to everything that happens to you. Because here's the thing, right now, we're still in this quarantine mentality, and we are feeling things stronger than we normally would. Bear that in mind, especially when you're creating your boundaries. Because a lot of things through this process, we did a lot of deep diving, a lot of introspection, and we all have a list of things that we want to change, things that we don't want to put up with, things that we want to put in place for our self-care, for our happiness. So think of that as you move forward. Think of the things that bring you joy and focus on the things that don't bring you joy, and how you're going to minimize those things in your life so that you can have more joy. That's the whole thing about creating boundaries. The more you create boundaries and you maintain those boundaries, the more you find less anxious, more at ease. The minute I put in place certain boundaries, I literally feel like I can exhale and move on to the next thing and not worry about that elephant in the room anymore, because I'm not dealing with the elephant. So, as always, this is Tanya Brown, your spiritual business coach. Don't forget to like this video, and don't forget to subscribe and share this with those that you feel that could use help with creating boundaries. And don't forget to comment on what boundaries are you putting in place right now, because this is the time to set it and forget it. Literally, the minute you set a boundary and you focus on holding that boundary, it's like a gate. The minute you lock that gate and you're like, yeah, I'm not letting these type of people in anymore, toxic, immoral, just judgmental, gossipers. Well, not the fun ones, but in that's when you're like, oh God, I'm so good with not dealing with that. There was a girlfriend that I remembered having way back in the day, and I would always wonder, why is it when after spending a day with her, whether we went to the movies, we went to a show, whatever, I felt like dirty. And it was because she was just so incredibly negative. It was such a drain. The show could have been amazing. The performance could have been outstanding. The dinner could have been fabulous. But her energy was just so toxic and draining, because she would always find that thing to focus on, that negative thing to latch onto and to build. So that the beauty of what we just experienced, the fun that I had in whatever cultural thing that we engaged in, was now just diminished, and this toxic conversation is just growing and growing. And even though I left her an hour ago, I'm trying to take it off. Like, say, I would use sage sometimes just to kind of get rid of it. That's what I'm saying. When you create boundaries, and I'll leave you with this one. Once I realized that that was a thing, that was the common theme every time we went out, I found myself not being available, to the point that a year passed by and I was like, my God, I haven't seen so and so in a while or spoken to her. And then when I said that, I found myself smiling. It felt good. There was no loss. There was no, oh, I need to catch up. It was like, my life was better with her out of it. And that's not saying she's a horrible person in any way, shape, or form. She was just not good for me. But again, this is Tanya Brown, your spiritual business coach. If you haven't already, please like this video. Don't forget to subscribe. And don't forget to comment in the comment section. And also, don't forget to book a session with me if you want to go a little further. As I mentioned, I'm a psychic clairvoyant, and I love getting under the hood of your business and life and helping you being the best person you can be. And that's it. Take care and see you on the next video.